Hello and welcome. I hope you're all well. Thank you for joining me. It's been a little while since I posted here on YouTube, but I wanted to make a video for the full moon in Scorpio that's taking place on the 1st of May. So that's this Friday. And that's taking place at 5:22 p.m. UK time. So you can adjust your time zones for that. It's also taking place at 11 degrees and 20 minutes of Scorpio. So I'm feeling quite a lot of different energies coming through with this full moon, and that's why I wanted to make an extended video here on YouTube. I have made a video for the week over on Instagram, but this one is solely for the energies of the full moon on Friday. And of course, we have a few days leading up to it energetically and a few days kind of leading off the back of it as well. So it's not just a one day, it's around about 6 days, I would usually say, that cover this full moon energy. So we have the sun opposing the moon, which is what happens for every full moon. The sun is directly opposite, and that then sheds light on whatever is taking place in the moon's area. So the moon is in Scorpio. And what I felt from that is Taurus shining on Scorpio. It's like a torch into the depths, is what came through. So there's this spotlight almost on the depths, the things that we're experiencing very deep down, very underworld kind of energy coming through, which is quite typical of Scorpio. And that's, it's one of the signs where we can do some of the best shadow work. So that's quite exciting for this week. If that's your kind of thing, it's my kind of thing. I do have a stellium in Scorpio though, so it is something that I quite look forward to, is really going into the depths. So this could be around things like finances, for example, which could be quite interesting. I feel over the coming week, it does feel as though truths could be coming to light around finances, about our financial stability and security. It could be through conversations with other people. It could be through situations and experiences. It could just be an internal dialogue that we have with ourselves, some of the things that we can touch on and uncover deep within. So there could be some shadow material around finances and feeling secure in the world that we need to work through this week, should we choose to. And I feel as well, because Scorpio is such a strong sign of commitment, this is really like a crux point in our lives. It's a turning point, is what I just heard, around really committing to ourselves, deeply committing to our magic, is what just came through then. So we can commit to pursuing our magic, harnessing our magic, working with our magic in order to create financial security moving forwards. I feel like this energy of collaboration with certain aspects and parts of ourselves that maybe we have cut off in the past, we haven't really acknowledged or worked with or loved. There's something about those coming to the surface this week, like moving towards this full moon. And there's such a strong light being shone on the dark places that we may as well make use of that kind of energy. So, a question that came through, I've got some notes here. A question is, how committed are you to yourself and your path? How committed are you, and how willing are you to move forwards no matter what, is what I'm hearing. Scorpio is a fixed sign and can become very fixated. And so that can be a positive thing as well as a disruptive thing. There's always a light and a shadow to each sign. I feel like if we can harness that fixation and we can use that to fixate on what makes us happy, what makes us grow, what helps us to expand, this could be very beneficial moving forwards. So another thing that came through was around deep emotion. That's not surprising, because Scorpio is all about that depth of feeling. Sometimes feels a little bit whirlpooly, sometimes feels a little bit kind of chaotic in that sense. Often, even though Scorpio is a water sign, I might feel like a heat to it. So it's almost like liquid lava, like molten lava, for example. So there's all this churning that can take place within the sign of Scorpio in an emotional sense. And I wrote down here, it's important for us to be in a grounded state so we can work with the energy of Taurus, with the sun being in Taurus. We can feel our deep emotions without letting them knock us off our perch, is what came through. So there could be like this churning, this movement, this energy of wanting to release, transform, transmute, all of this like fire and water that's taking place. And being able to do that without completely losing sight of what we need to do on the daily, the things that we need to do day to day to keep our lives running in a practical sense. It would be really good around the time of this full moon if we can carve out some space, if you can find somewhere where you can sit and do some of this shadow work, sit and connect with your emotions, allow these parts to speak to you, to come to the surface. There's something around insecurities that I'm picking up on, some kind of deep insecurity, maybe an insecure part of ourselves that really wants to speak, wants to be acknowledged, wants to be held, looked after, uh, bigged up is what I just heard. So like lifting them up and making them feel more confident within themselves. Because of course, these parts of ourselves are created, they split from us energetically, and we push them into the shadow, uh, possibly sometimes through shame, some kind of event that takes place in our lives, and this part gets left behind. So it's like calling these parts back to us. You could see this is kind of like soul retrieval, bringing these fragments of ourselves back into the light, because they always have something very beautiful, very powerful to offer. And I would say that that ties in with what I was saying about magic, harnessing our own magic to move forwards into the lives that we want to create. So there could be an element of perhaps like the magician here, some part of us that is very magical, that can manifest very easily, but was perhaps pushed into the shadows for being weird or strange, something like that. You'll all have your own versions of whatever this is. So there are a few aspects that I found quite interesting when I was looking at the chart for this moon. It's going to affect all of you in different ways. It depends how much you know about your own chart as well, how you can kind of work with this energy. If you don't know much about your own chart, then I do offer birth chart reports, which you can find on my website, and the link will be down in the description box. That can really help you to get a grip, like get a handle on what's happening in your own chart and how that then is affected by certain astrological events as well. So the first aspect that I really noticed that stood out to me, that wanted to be kind of shared, messages wanted to be shared about intuitively, was Saturn sextile Venus. Now, there are a lot of sextiles and trines taking place during this full moon, and that's very positive, because sextiles and trines are both positive aspects, which means that we've got some support moving through this full moon. So Saturn sextile Venus is great for emotional maturity. Venus is very emotional, connected to the heart, very also very grounded, connected to the sign of Venus, the sign of Taurus, also connected to the sign of Libra as well. So there's a lot around relationships here. There's a lot around connection in that sense, but also our own connection to our grounded selves, to our physical bodies. But yeah, emotional security, bringing in the Saturn influence with this aspect. Saturn has that emotional maturity. He is like the father of the planetary world, let's say. And so bringing these two together, having this emotional maturity to deal with whatever it is that we're moving through in our lives, is going to be really, really helpful when we start to connect in with these aspects of ourselves that aren't mature, that have been left behind at a certain time in our lives, maybe childhood, maybe our teenage years. And so coming in, I'm hearing like coming in as the parent, coming in as someone who can reparent these aspects of ourselves and taking care of ourselves in that sense. We may find that there are still quite a few planets in Aries when this full moon takes place. So we've got Neptune, Saturn, Mars, Mercury, and Chiron all still in Aries. So there's still quite a lot of like burgeoning, fiery, pushy energy that's taking place. We might find that at times this energy is almost like shoving us to throw caution to the wind and maybe be a little bit impulsive. Whereas if we can lean into this Saturn sextile Venus, we can ground a little bit more, and we can also consider consequences, let's say, before we just bolt off in a certain direction, no matter how tempting that direction may be. So Saturn's very much in it for the long haul. This is very far-reaching energy. That's why I'm talking about consequences. How are the actions of today going to affect, the outcomes of tomorrow? What do we want to be focusing on at this time? And can we just take our time a little bit? Can we rein ourselves in a little bit and just see how things could play out in the future if we take particular certain types of action? Venus as well is very much to do with our values, and so we really need to be checking in with what aligns with our values, moving forwards with integrity in that sense, rather than, like I said, being rash and impulsive and just following that Aries energy and rushing off into the sunset. We've also got Venus trining Pluto, which brings a lot of emotional depth and a lot of deep transformation of the heart, is what I've written down here. So I'm feeling, what I saw then was like layers and layers and layers being released from around the heart. And that can be quite tender work. It can be quite, well, emotional. It can bring a lot to the surface. And so again, taking that time to sit back and reflect, feel into how we're feeling, and give ourselves that space in order to heal, to move forwards in a more whole way. So another thing around that as well, especially around Scorpio energy, is that it can be quite grippy. It's a fixed sign. It can be quite grippy and maybe possessive. I said before about fixation. Scorpio energy can get very fixated on a particular experience or idea or person, relationship, whatever's taking place. And so we need to notice where we might be holding a little bit too tight, holding on too tightly to something. There could be a tendency towards insecurity, like I said before, or some kind of jealousy or possessiveness. This definitely needs to be noticed and transmuted, changed, shifted. Because what I'm feeling is this energy of insecurity is coming from the parts that I mentioned that we need to connect with, those parts of ourselves that got left behind. Jealousy always comes from insecurity. And so it's really important that we help ourselves to feel more secure moving forwards. I wrote here to check our pain points. So that's what I'm talking about. If certain things are said or certain things happen and they poke at a wound, we'll very much notice over this time of the Scorpio full moon. And, Scorpio is the scorpion. It can have a sting in its tail. It's very important that we make sure that we're not like taking that out on other people. If we start to feel insecure, jealous, a little bit possessive, any of those things, it's really important to note that that is our stuff and not someone else's stuff. And it's really important for us to be with that and react, or respond rather, in an emotionally mature way, which is supported by Saturn trine Venus. So where are you feeling insecure at the moment? Because we've had so much going on in Aries, and especially with Chiron being in Aries still, I do get this sense that there's still a lot of stuff coming up around our identity. It could be the wounded masculine, because Aries is a very masculine sign connected to the planet of Mars, the god of war. It's all very masculine energy, and Mars is still in Aries as well. So just keep an eye on that and just see whether there are any wounds around kind of masculinity within ourselves. The masculine energy is all about taking initiative, taking action, moving forwards. And if we have any wounding around that, then we may notice things like procrastination, holding ourselves back, again, through that insecurity and maybe fear of stepping out there and being seen in the world. So this moon is really offering capacity for deep emotional healing. And I would say, especially since it's Taurus season, grab the bull by the horns and go for it. Really go into this stuff. It's not going to kill you. At the very least, it's going to make you cry. the very most, you might have like a full-on emotional kind of collapse, which is what you might need at the time, a full-on emotional release. I'm not talking about complete kind of breakdowns here, but it is very important to allow these things to move. I'm getting like a bubbling lava pit, so this could be likened to a volcano, for example. And if we don't allow this pressure to come out bit by bit consciously, it eventually erupts anyway. And then we have the risk then, or run the risk of splurging that all over other people, and that's not what we want to do. So there could be a closing of a very long emotional cycle, for example, that we need to take care of. Something's coming to a close with these parts and these aspects coming up to the surface. It could be like a full circle kind of energy where we can allow the completion of emotional cycles that we couldn't allow before, or we didn't know how to allow. So by that, I mean, if there are emotions that we stuffed down at a certain time in our lives because maybe we didn't know how to handle them, we didn't think we had the support, or we didn't have the support, we weren't taught how to deal with big emotions, and so they go straight back down. There needs to be completion of these emotions, so that emotion wasn't allowed to flow and complete its cycle, and so it gets stuck and it repeats over and over again. So this could be something around insecurity, jealousy, anger. Quite a lot of those kinds of themes can often get pushed down, those emotions, because they are deemed as being unacceptable, especially things like anger, and things like jealousy and possessiveness as well, like feeling jealous and envious. We might think, oh, that's not a spiritual thing, or we might have been told not to do that, or maybe we've seen somewhere that jealousy is bad. And it's like all of the things that we stuff down really need to come out and be allowed to complete, as I said. And we've got Mars square Jupiter. I've just noticed I've written down here as well. So there's I felt this is like tension between hedonism and expansion. So there's this hedonistic feeling, as like I was saying, of just do what feels good in the moment, and just go ahead and do whatever you like and rush ahead. Like this Aries energy I was talking about with all of the planets in Aries, and that impulsiveness and being rash and making rash decisions. There's that side of it, like that Mars, and then there's Jupiter, which actually wants us to expand and grow and have a very expansive and happy and fortune-filled life. But some of our old tendencies, some of the old impulsivity, maybe the old jealousy again, or possessiveness, or fixed ideas, or fixation, or obsession, any of these things, they could actually hold us back from expansion. So it is important to really sit with these things and notice why it is that we're doing certain things, or why we're feeling to do certain things, and just be aware of that Aries push that is still there. Also, as well, I'm not demonizing the sign of Aries just for being like fully very much an impulsive sign. Aries is actually a very, very good sign for getting going as well. So it's not about kind of demonizing this force and this drive. It's about knowing what our drivers are. So Mars is all about what drives us. So if we can figure out what it is that's driving a certain action, then that's a really good way to figure out whether it's coming from a place of fear or a place of love and expansion. So sitting with that's going to be very helpful over the next week as well. Well, over the full moon as well. I felt like I was doing a weekly reading then. I'm not. I'm doing a full moon reading. So all of these things aren't going to happen overnight. As I said, you usually get 3 days before, 3 days after the full moon. You get those kinds of energies still swimming around. Also, this could be like the beginnings of really getting to know these parts of ourselves, or re-getting to know them if we've touched on them before. Sometimes we have aspects come to the forefront and we allow them to come out, and then for whatever reason we push them back down again. That's definitely a thing. So either you're getting to know them for the first time, or they're resurfacing, so that we can go more deeply into what they need in order to feel secure and seen and healthy and happy. Another thing before I go into the tarot is that we have potential resurfacing wounds around communication. And I say this because Mercury will be conjunct Chiron during this full moon. Mercury and Chiron together, that's very much about wounding around expressing ourselves, being able to communicate. Where do we hold ourselves back instead of saying what we really mean, or asking for what we really want, or expressing who we really are? So there could be a wounding around that, around the throat area energetically. So that could be helpful to work with the color blue, I would say, just to help open that throat center out so that we can speak our truth more freely. And there may be fear around that because of this Chiron conjunction. Some kind of wounding where perhaps in the past we've spoken our truth, we've expressed our needs, we've expressed who we truly are, and it's been shut down, and we've decided subconsciously probably that that's not a good idea, and then we shut off. So if you've got any of those themes taking place in your life at the moment where you know that you need to communicate more openly, and I just heard more efficiently as well, this could be really helpful, like working with that throat healing over the time of this new moon, full moon. So yeah, with all of that said, that's the astrology side of things. There are more aspects, but I think if I covered all of them, it would be a very, very, very long video. So those are the ones that really jumped out at me intuitively to cover in this video. So let's see what the tarot wants to say. Okay, Eight of Swords. Yeah, this is what I was saying about whether our actions are being driven by love or driven by fear. There could be a lot of kind of fears resurfacing around all kinds of things over this full moon. It really is illuminating a lot of the deep dark spaces, as I said, but it is ultimately a good thing, even if it feels very uncomfortable. This is a very serious looking card, and I do believe this card is connected to the Morrigan. And so there could be like a warlike feeling to this as well, maybe like an internal war that we've experienced throughout our lives. Feeling at odds with ourselves is what just came through. And I just heard push pull as well. So there could be a kind of push pull energy that's taking place, wanting to push forward with things, but feeling pulled back by these insecurities and these fears. And it's really important to just be present with whatever this is. The Eight of Swords can really talk about being held back by fears. And I find that identifying them can be really, really helpful. And you could even call on the Morrigan actually to help you through this time. She's very good when it comes to gaining strength, calling on our own strength, our own power, and also like the energy of dark feminine as well. So there's like, I'm feeling this element of destruction in order to be reborn. And so I just heard like destroying these pain points, which sounds really intense. But these things really need to go. I can feel almost like this level of impatience from the people that are watching this video. So if you are feeling that, I totally get where you're coming from. It can feel very frustrating. You can start to feel impatient when you know you want to go on something, but there are these parts of you that are just gripping and holding on. That's what I was saying about that Scorpio energy being fixed as well, just gripping, holding on, not wanting to let go, and also having a fear of letting go and just being ourselves. But the Morrigan can help us with that. I just saw her waving a wing, so it's like a crow's wing, and like burning a lot of things to the ground. So these could be our limitations, let's say, burning these limitations to the ground. And I feel like that is really needed. There's been a lot of procrastination I'm feeling around actually taking steps forward, and now there needs to be like this intense energy to just blitz everything is what I'm feeling. Just clear it away and then begin again. And then I can see these new shoots coming up through the ground. Yeah, also then like the feeling of, you know, like the poppy fields that grew on Flanders fields after the war, and, you know, they represent that new growth after destruction. and violence and all of those things. That's what I'm getting. It's like after the war come the poppies, or after the war come the roses, is what I heard as well. So it's good to know that new growth is coming from this energy, which is what happens when we allow old things to die. So let's pull another card. Okay, so we've also got the Magician. So through all of this, through all of these battles, through all of these internal wars that we've fought within ourselves, through all of these difficulties in our lives, we've managed to somehow stay open-hearted. And this is such a beautiful card in this deck. I really love the way that he's bearing his chest. He's showing his heart to the world. And I just heard like wearing his heart on his sleeve. And this isn't something that we would usually necessarily connect with or associate with the Magician in the tarot. But I love in this deck that it's really, what it says to me is that in order to create magically, in order to manifest, in order to attract that which we desire, that we really want into our lives, and that which we need to keep our hearts open. And you might feel that your heart is a little battle scarred. Like if we look at this card, I know they're tattoos, but often they make me think of scars here on her face. Even though like our hearts are battle scarred from all of the things that we've been through, we're still here, and we're still showing up, and we're still loving, and we're still learning to take care of ourselves, and we're still learning to let others in. We're still learning to trust again. And when we have these fears and insecurities, it can be very difficult to trust again, especially if we feel we've been betrayed and hurt and taken advantage of, or any of these things in the past, you know, like being attacked for who we are emotionally. It can be hard to keep your heart open, but this card is saying like continue to do that. It's like yes, be protected, yes, use protection, but don't protect to the point where you're putting walls up and pushing people away. Because over the time of this full moon, there could be people who really want to be there for us. They really genuinely have a fondness for us, they love us, they want to be there. And to push them away, I'm hearing, would be foolish. We need to keep our hearts open in order to create the next phase, is what I'm hearing. Beautiful. So let's pull one more card, see what else wants to come through. I feel this really is a powerful moon, and it's not surprising because Scorpio moons are very powerful moons, especially the full moon. So like it's such a huge opportunity, a great opportunity to work with this, to open our magical selves to the world, and at least to start with, open them to ourselves. Some of you might be feeling that coming online already. Your magical aspects, your magical talents, your psychic gifts, your ability to work with magic to create things in your life. And the ability to let things die, I just heard as well, which is very Scorpionic. So then we have the Two of Pentacles. So like I said, not everything's going to happen overnight. This full moon, yes, it's a culmination of many things. Yes, it's a closure in some ways. And then at the same time, I'm also seeing a new book opening. So you might be closing an old book, opening a new book. And sometimes books take a little while to get going. I don't know if you've ever read a book and kind of gone, I don't know if I'm into this or not. And then you get to like the second chapter and you feel more invested in the characters and you're enjoying it and you're getting to know the characters and the names and the places. This is what that feels like. It's like, give it a chance. This part of you might be very slow and steady moving forwards, still being in Taurus season. Yeah, it's like, and I feel like this card is actually related to Taurus as well. So I do feel there's something around finances again, which I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Something about allowing things to grow organically, allowing them to grow naturally, not trying to kind of pull them to make them grow faster. If she pulled this plant, she would kill it. She would pull the roots out, and the roots need to go further down. There's something about becoming established, and there could be some kind of frustration or envy around, you know, other people having what we want or being further ahead. We think they're further ahead than we are, but we're going at our own pace, and that's what we need to do. We need to move at our own pace because we are the only us. I am the only me, you are the only you. And so you will have your own rhythm, your own timing. So it's important to stick to that and to be patient, dare I say it, with these energies, these planets still in Aries, especially Mars in Aries. But we do need to be patient with ourselves. The things that you're moving through at the moment and the fears that you're facing, those fears are there because of wounding. Those fears are there, those insecurities are there because of wounding in the past. And so to be really harsh on yourself is unfair. There is a reason that you feel the way that you feel. There is a reason that you're afraid to take the next step. So taking it slow and steady gives your nervous system the chance to adjust. It gives your nervous system the chance to settle. And I don't know, like even just taking one action a day towards your dream future life, sometimes that's enough. And sometimes that's just right in terms of timing. So I don't know who needed to hear that, but sometimes I do. So just take it slow and steady moving forwards. You're processing a lot at the moment through this full moon. Yeah. There's a lot going on in the solar plexus. That's what I'm feeling with all this yellow. There's a lot going on. Churning kind of energy. Fear will often do that to the solar plexus. So do whatever you can to support your nervous system through this time. Do whatever you can to support yourself emotionally. If you've got a therapist you can talk to, then do that. If you've got close friends you can talk to, do that. Journaling is going to be really helpful. I'm feeling like baths and showers and being near water, the sea, rivers, all of that is going to feel very helpful and very cleansing. Sometimes Scorpio energy can get a little bit sticky, a little bit thick, a little bit stuck with it being a fixed energy. So I feel like flowing energy of water is really helpful. It will be really helpful over the full moon. Letting things go, just almost like purging them out. If you need to cry, then cry. Do whatever it takes in a healthy way to let yourself be free of this weight that you've been carrying for such a long time. So that was quite a long video with lots of information. So maybe you want to rewatch this and take some notes if you haven't already. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for watching. I've really enjoyed doing this for you. And I will see you all soon. If you want to book a private reading with me or a birth chart report, the links are in the description. And take extra good care of yourselves. Much love. Bye-bye.